Good afternoon. My name is Paul Whaley. I'm a clinical specialist with EKOS Boston Scientific. What I wanted to talk to you guys today on my own free personal time was about what you're going to see with the EKOS 4.0 model, what we treat, how it works. So let's get right into it. So what you see here is our EKOS 4.0 model. What's really great about this upgraded model from our PT3 version is that we can treat two PE catheters, two peripheral vascular catheters at one time. This one unit has a lithium-ion battery inside this chassis, and the entire chassis weighs 8 total pounds. That's an amazing aspect. You can literally take this off of the cart in case you had to transport your patient to another facility. You can put it inside the ambulance or the helicopter. Ultrasound therapy travels with the patient. They're receiving the best patient care possible while en route to their new facility. So I want to talk to you guys about what our cart is. This is our EKOS cart. It's essentially a large heart cart. You have two large spaces to put your example IV pumps on. It obviously houses our 4.0 chassis, and there's plenty of IV checkpoints for you to hang your bags of fluid when you're using EKOS therapy. Now, having said that, you're going to see 3 fluids for each catheter. So if this is a bilateral, you're going to have 6 fluids and 2 catheters. I'm going to talk about the catheter momentarily. So let's get right into it. What is EKOS? EKOS is acoustic pulse thrombolysis. Thrombolysis meaning we are lysosing a blood clot. Typically we see lysosing of blood clots with TPA and with tenecteplase. What is acoustic pulse thrombolysis? What does that acoustic pulse mean? Well, what it means is this control unit generates ultrasound at 2.2 megahertz. So why is that important? Ultrasound does something really amazing to a clot. Here's how it all works. So this is a blood clot in our patient's bodies. Now, this is of course not the scale, but a blood clot has natural TPA receptor sites all over them. Our body releases recombinant TPA, TPA binds to those receptor sites, and the clot essentially dissolves and floats away. This is a process that happens all day long, every day, and it's something we're not aware of. However, when patients become symptomatic, here's what happens at the cellular level. The clot receives something else called fibrin strands, and the fibrin strands are literally covering the clot, making the clot larger and larger and a lot more tightly bound. So the TPA that we release in our bodies cannot penetrate that clot and dissolve it. So we use our EKOS catheter to dissolve that. So here's how it all works. We use ultrasound at 2.2 megahertz and thrombolytic medications such as TPA or tenecteplase. It's all simultaneously delivered through our EKOS catheter. Here's our clot. Our clot is large and it's very symptomatic. We treat 3 separate disease states. We treat arterial blood clots in the peripheral vasculature, we treat DVT blood clots, and we also treat PEs, whether it's unilateral or bilateral. So here's our clot, here's our catheter. We place our catheter endoscopically in the lab with a very small 6-French sheath. The catheter goes directly into the patient's vasculature and then into the blood clot. When we turn on ultrasound at 2.2 megahertz, something really magical happens. The ultrasound literally unlocks the clot. It actually loosens and unwinds those tight fibrin strands, allowing for penetration. Well, guess what? We're going to now be able to penetrate the clot with our drug. Our drug also comes through our catheter. So once we've unlocked the clot, guess what's inside the clot? TPA receptor sites. The TPA can now flow through our catheter into the clot. The clot literally dissolves from the inside out. We do not break anything up. We don't shake anything up. We literally dissolve the clot as the body's natural defense to thrombus that's inside the vasculature. So let's talk about my catheter for a minute. We're going to talk about the EKOS console, and then I'm going to show you how it all works right over here at our demonstration model, which is right off camera. So this is our EKOS catheters. You're going to see it. It looks daunting. Let me break it down for you. The first and foremost, remember I said 3 fluids. I have 3 fluids hanging up here on my example pumps. So 3 separate fluids. My catheter is going to take 2 fluids, and then you're going to have something else that takes the 3rd fluid. Let's talk about this guy for just a minute. Okay, so this is a 6-French sheath. Most of us in the IR cath lab and OR worlds know this, but if you're unfamiliar with this, nurses, just know that this is an introducer sheath. This is not part of my device, but you're going to see this on every EKOS patient, and more times than not, you're going to see a fluid flowing through here, okay? I'm going to put him off to the side for just a minute, and I'm going to talk about my catheter for just a minute. So this is my EKOS catheter. My EKOS catheter has 2 pieces. The EKOS IDDC, or infusion catheter, and then I have a ultrasound wire or MSD wire, okay? So it's a black wire and a white wire. They come separately in the package. Let's talk about both of them. So first and foremost, you're going to see my EKOS catheter right here. Well, nurses and techs, you guys are going to be taking a look at these catheters and thinking, gee whiz, I've got 3 fluids, where do they all go? Well, here we go. What's really great about EKOS and Boston Scientific is that EKOS and Boston Scientific literally put 2 of your 3 fluids in their label on my catheter. Check it out. Red for drug, high-risk medications, and then blue for coolant, because he's the cool guy. That's how I explain it in my in-service as well. We have 3 fluids that are delivered. We have normal saline coolant, he's the blue guy, and then I have high-risk medication called TPA, that's the red one. So you already know where 2 of your 3 fluids go on your catheter. Let's talk about our coolant port for just a minute. Okay, our coolant port is blue, labeled coolant. Your normal saline is where the coolant goes. Coolant flows from your bag through your pump and hooks directly up to the back end of my coolant port. There is no circuit that runs from your bag to your pump to your machine and then to my catheter. Okay? The only purpose of coolant is not a normal saline bolus for the patient because they had a procedure. The coolant actually cools off my ultrasound wire that's inside the catheter. Ultrasound at 2.2 megahertz, which is generated from this machine, you'll never be tested. Just know ultrasound that comes out of a metal wire creates warmth. We need to cool off our ultrasound wire, and that's what the normal saline does. The normal saline flows from my coolant port, bathes my ultrasound wire all the way out, and then literally comes out the tip of this catheter just like an IV in the patient's vasculature. That's the only purpose. Let's talk about our drug port. Our drug port is red for high-risk medications. Well, guess what? Our thrombolytic medications are high-risk medications. They're going to flow from your bag through your pump, and they're going to hook directly into the back end of my EKOS catheter on the drug port. The drug is also going to flow through this catheter, but they're separate lumens, so there's no cross-contamination between your normal saline coolant and your TPA. We all know that TPA has cost to it, and there's also a concentration, a specific milligrams per hour that the physicians want across the country. So we're not diluting our TPA through our catheter because they're separate channels. The TPA also flows through my catheter, but it goes through a separate channel all the way down. The TPA comes out of the end of my catheter through tiny pores that are punched in this catheter all the way around. They are smaller than a human hair, so you literally cannot see them. But what's really great about it, according to our mechanism of action, here's our clot. We place the catheter inside. Ultrasound unlocks or loosens those fibrin strands, allows for penetration. Well, guess what's penetrating the clot? Our TPA at the end of our catheter. TPA literally is driven deep into the clot with our ultrasound waves, and the clot has thrombolysis and floats away. The patients become better, and we can treat our patients successfully and safely with relatively ease of use of our catheter. So what you're going to see after that are 2 wires, okay? The white wire goes to my catheter, and the black wire goes to my ultrasound port. These guys are literally going to plug into, well, you know, you could pick and choose your name. This, we call it the CIC. That's our technical term for it. But you guys in the field, you can call it a remote, a pod, whatever it is that you want. This is the EKOS connection, and here's my catheters, my electrical EKOS wires. So guess what? These are the same as pulse ox probes. If you guys can see that on the camera, this is literally pulse ox connectors. They only go in one way. Well, guess what? It's a Fisher-Price medical device. It simply goes in white to white, black to black, shape to shape. Now here's something that's really cool. When you hook up your catheter, watch the green lights. Here comes my green light. Green is go, as we know. Black, check it out, green to go. And what you're gonna see on the end of this is my EKOS catheter is ready to go. So guess what? Now we have, on my catheter, it says running. I know that's difficult to see on the camera, but you're literally going to see a green running across the bottom screen, and the EKOS ultrasound waves are actually animating on this screen. The reason you heard that alarm a minute ago is because I plugged up my actual demo catheter that's outside the patient's body, and the machine recognized immediately that this catheter is not in a patient's normal body temperature, and it was telling me that there was a cool temperature alarm on the machine. What's really great about our EKOS 4.0 model is the machine literally tells you exactly what to do. It tells the staff, it tells the techs, it tells the physicians exactly what's going on. Is the action running? Is there a problem? And what do you need to do to get it to where it's running? It's intuitive, intelligent delivery of your EKOS therapy. It is an amazing piece of technology and quite an upgrade from our PT3B units. So if you have PT3B units in your facilities, I would suggest going to the 4.0 model. For a variety of reasons, okay? Now, what's really great on our EKOS touch screen right here is that you have separate channels on the top right here, separate buttons that you can press to get you different information that you need. What I'm going to focus on are the 2. So the home button I'm sorry I can't get any closer. The home button's up here in the top left, and it's literally a house. It's a home button, okay? And that's gonna show us the actual machine is running, or it's gonna be telling you what you need to do to get your therapy started. The second button to the right is a little eye with a circle around it, and that means information button, okay? And when you press the information button, it's gonna give you all kinds of numbers and statistics on the machine, serial numbers of my catheter, serial numbers of the remote or the pod. But what I wanna focus on is at the bottom down here, we are the only company that offers 24-hour day, 7-day a week, 365 days a year, holidays, nights, and weekends, EKOS expert help. They are literally waiting by the phone for your call. If you have any problems, if you don't remember what we have told you in your in-services, if you have questions about medication dosing that we can give you examples of, if there's any problems with our EKOS technology, questions, concerns, there is an EKOS helpline. Guess what that number is? It's 1-888-EKOS-HELP, okay? That number is 1-888-356-7435. You can call that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you will have a live EKOS expert on the phone with you 24 hours a day. I've done cases in the middle of the night on this team. If you have problems, you have a new facility, a new physician, you guys really need help, don't ever hesitate to call. We are always there. To get back to your regular screen, you are simply going to press the home screen, and you are back to the screen where you show running and the animation. Our EKOS control unit has 2 buttons on it for each channel, a start and a stop, which is really cool. To start ultrasound therapy, you literally connect your catheter, press the green start button, and you see the green animation running. Stop is for 2 reasons. There are 2 reasons why we will stop ultrasound therapy, particularly number 1, if you have a PE patient and you need to do echocardiogram at bedside. If you do not stop our ultrasound, you will see artifact on the Echotech's screen, so you want to make sure that you stop the ultrasound by pressing the red stop button. The other reason would be for arterial peripheral vascular cases. If you are checking pedal pulses, you want to make sure to stop your ultrasound so that you don't hear our ultrasound waves inside the microphone of your Doppler when you're listening for the returning of pulses, okay? So those would be your 2, starting and stopping. This machine, you have to restart your ultrasound therapy. If you stop ultrasound therapy, you need to restart it. It's like any other machine that you have. It is not a self-starting system. If you forget to restart your therapy, after 5 minutes, the machine is going to alarm. It's going to be a gentle alarm. It's just going to say, hey, restart me. The machine is literally going to tell you, press the green start button. It's going to have a little yellow flasher on it, and you simply press the green start button, and the machine is now running. There's a couple of other features as well. I told you earlier that we have a lithium-ion battery that's just inside the machine. There's also a battery indicator. It's just like your phone chargers or your cell phones. There is a battery indicator so that you know exactly how much power you have, and guess what? You can transport this off battery or off power on your battery. You get 2 hours of transport time on a battery if you're treating 1 EKOS catheter. You get 1 hour of transport if you're treating 2 of your EKOS catheters at one time. I have no idea where anyone would be going for a transport longer than an hour. Most of your EMS and helicopters have inverters, so you can plug this right up, but just make sure that you plug your machines up no matter where you go. If you're transporting your patients from the cath lab, IRs or ORs, make sure that you take the extra step to plug in your unit once you get upstairs, just to help out your ICU friends or your recovery friends to make sure that we don't lose power. So what happens if we lose power? What happens if my machine shuts off when you transport? It's okay. Do you know why? Because this catheter is still flowing. Your fluids are still running through my catheter. The patient is still receiving thrombolysis. We are just not using our ultrasound supercharger, I like to call it. Simply return power and press the green start button. It's okay. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure you keep your units charged at all times or plugged in when you're not using it. This is our pod. Our pod literally can be stored on the side of the machine right here. There's little holders for it. When it's not in use, you do not want to have your catheters plugged in and parked right here on this holder, because you're going to bend your wires, and this little piece right here is going to make your wires a little bit more difficult. They become unplugged. Plus, the pods have a very long cord, and that long cord allows you to have maneuverability in your room, because this is a piece of apparatus, and sometimes some of your ICU rooms are a little bit smaller, or your elevators during transport are a little smaller, so you want to have that extra room to maneuver your patient and the technology around so that you can safely get to where you need to get to. Now, as promised, I taught you about our third piece of the apparatus, okay? This is our introducer sheath that I was telling you about earlier. This is not part of our EKOS device. Any lab, IR, cath lab, OR, wherever you're putting these devices in, are going to have what we call an introducer sheath. This is a 6-French introducer sheath. This is the minimum required size that we need, okay? It's green, so it's a 6-French sheath. So this is not part of our device, but you're going to see it on every EKOS catheter. So why am I talking about it? I'm talking about it because most, on average, of your EKOS patients are going to have your 3 fluids. Now, we've talked about our normal saline coolant and our TPA, or thrombolytic, that's flowing through our catheter. But the third fluid you're going to typically see is your heparinized drip, your heparin drip, okay? So most of our vascular patients across the country, at least here in the United States, are on a heparin drip. Heparin, on average, is literally going to be seen flowing through the side arm of your sheath. It could be peripheral or it could be not going at all. It is physician's prescribed fluid. It is not part of our EKOS device. However, I want to talk about it because you're going to be seeing it on most of your EKOS patients. The average dose, again, this is an example dose, your average dose is going to be between 300 and 500 units. It is a non-weight-based heparin, and it's going to be usually a dose between 300 to 500 units. How your physician wants to run heparin, if they want to run it at all, is strictly up to them. I'm just giving you examples of what you are normally going to see with your EKOS. So heparin, side arm of the sheath, 300 to 500 units per hour. It's a fixed, non-weight-based dose of heparin, so it is not a titratable dose for all of you guys out there who are titrating your heparin doses based on a weight-based algorithm for your labs. Okay, so let's talk about our normal saline and our TPA. When we're talking about our drip rates, well, guess what? Our studies have shown between 0.5 to 2 milligrams of TPA per hour in our PE cases and our arterial and our DVT. However, it's physicians prescribed. What I've seen across the country is 1 milligram an hour through our EKOS catheter. 1 milligram an hour for a PE patient, 1 milligram an hour for our DVT and our arterial. But again, it is physicians prescribed. They may prescribe 0.5. It is whatever they feel they need to do to treat their patients. I just want to give you an example range so you kind of have an idea of our milligrams per hour. How long are we treating our patients for? On average, our PE patients, we can treat PE patients as little as 2 hours, which is really great. But on average, I see our patients at 6 to 12 hours for PE, DVT and arterial. The treatment time, again, same 1 milligram per hour, but we're going to be treating them overnight. So if they place it in at, say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're literally going to see those patients in the ICU overnight, and they're going to go back down to the lab in the morning for a recheck. We're actually checking out to see if the vasculature has been opened up, and then we're going to be able to explore options of why that vasculature was clotted out to begin with, and then what other Boston products we can use to open that vasculature back up. So again, PEs, 6 to 12 hours, 1 milligram per hour. Arterial and DVT, we're going to be treating at 1 milligram per hour on average, and we're going to be treating overnight until the morning. Heparin, again, we're going to be treating non-weight based, fixed dose between 300 to 500 units per hour, and again, it's physicians prescribed. So what else can I tell you? Oh, let's talk about how it actually works. This is the best part about it. I love this presentation. Pardon the crinkling of my machine, but here is what our unit looks like when it's actually in the patient's vasculature. Now, I want you to notice our acoustic pulse technology right there. Do you see all those waves in there? That is literally how our device works. It is literally, and you can actually see it bouncing out of the water. Those ultrasound waves are so powerful that it's actually able to drive that TPA deep into the clot to get thrombolysis. And there goes one of my earbuds. So that is exactly how our technology works. This is a water demo that hopefully our field sales teams are using out there. And with that, I am going to bid everyone adieu, and I hope that you've learned something. Again, my name is Paul, and it's been a pleasure to see you with you guys today. Thank you, and have a great day.